We brought you on to talk about a lot of different things from your new book to IROC, but I think we'd be remiss if we didn't get your initial reaction to what happened at Atlanta Motor Speedway and that finish that is going to forever go down in NASCAR lore.
I think it is an incredible finish, right? Like it is really neat. It's what you want to see. It is, it's going to be exciting. It's going to do a lot for NASCAR. It's going to do a lot for, fans. And again, it'll get played over and over again. But what I hope we don't lose is the fact that, that some way, how we've got to find a way to keep the races exciting without tearing up all the race cars and things like that. I think the finish was incredible. And I know that everybody that was there, looked like there was a great crowd at Atlanta, but I'm concerned about the overall type of racing with the pushing and the blocking and things like that. So I guess that's my overall thought about this. So if you separate and say, what about the finish? The finish was incredible. There's no doubt about it. When you see three cars going, three wide, I think the only picture I've ever seen like that is when Kyle's grandfather won the Daytona 500, and one of those was a lap car. This was incredible. But when I look at the overall racing, I'm just not sure where I stand on that.
Yeah. Well, we brought you on to talk about your book, Trophies and Scars, and the trophies have been well documented. We all know the trophies, but I think the scars are going to be the part of the book that is kind of illuminating to a lot of people. Can you just talk about some of the things that readers might see or find out in this book, and what brought you to now as being a time when you wanted to do this?
Well, as you're, first of all, to answer the second part of that, what brought me to now, I think thinking about my children, and thinking about all the people who have helped me in my career that didn't get to actually make that journey physically with us. I wanted my children and my family to understand what I was thinking while that was happening, right or wrong. I wanted everyone who's ever helped me to feel like they've taken that ride with me, because without every person who ever gave you a leg up, or just shook your hand or a pat on the back or some encouragement, might not have become the person that I am today. And I wanted them to know that everybody made a difference. They didn't waste their time on me. I wanted my children and the fans and the people to understand, what I was thinking. And that as you evolve as a person, there are going to be some things that you're going to look back and go, man, you know what? I was thinking that, and I didn't even realize it at the time. And, there are some decisions you think, it's not like regrets, but there are things you would have liked to handle differently. Or you look back on it and say, well, at that time, that's about as good as I could have handled it. And I wanted to be really honest and open. When you write a book, you're very vulnerable. If you're going to write a book and you're going to be honest, you're going to be vulnerable. But, the whole deal was to try and explain the best way that this is what I was thinking. And some people are going to read it and go, oh, I get that. And some people are just going to be confused as hell going, man, what was he thinking?
Brad Gilly, I know that I think you're next in the queue here with Ray.
See, I want to ask Ray about all the IROC questions, but we can save that for a minute. The great thing is that we saw a great appearance and listened to one with you on the Dale Jr. download, and you revealed a lot of things that I think it will especially surprised him, including the relationship that you not only had with his father, but with his team as well. I'm curious, Ray, is this where we get to actually hear where you sort of unload all of the things that you got past tech and different things like that, and what was really going on behind the scenes out there at the racetrack?
Well, I didn't really get that much past tech. Those are all rumors. I don't understand, Brad, why people keep about those things. So, we talked about a lot of the things that we did and that were not illegal. We talked about how we approached different things when we looked at how we put templates on the cars and drew the lines, and how, when we went to Indy, the things that we did. And I think the engineering strength that Hendrick actually had, and how we were getting further ahead, and the fact that we weren't afraid to take a chance. We were always really pushing the boundaries. Now, we definitely made NASCAR create a lot of rules. I do talk specifically about the wheel coming off at Charlotte, which was on me, take full responsibility with that, and explain the whole situation. But, we got a lot of, people used to say, oh, they did this, and did we ever pull a template or do whatever? Yeah, same as everybody else. But I talk about a conversation in there that I had with Bill France Jr. that said, look, these are the things that you will not do, or you will be sitting in the grandstand watching these cars go around. You understand me? Hey, if you pull a template or you do whatever, so, and Kyle can comment on too, there's just certain things that everybody did, as I said, jacking around with a template or a little bit here and there, but there were certain things that you didn't do. But I did talk specifically about some of the advances I felt like we got, like lower in center gravities, and how we got efficient with our aerodynamics and our unsprung weight and all that stuff out ahead of everybody else. And you got to remember, I was really fortunate to come into the sport at a time when I had just come off of IROC, where we developed the Penske shock absorber, so that came in, and we did all the testing for the radial tires. So kind of had an advantage on those guys until we figured out when we figured out how to race NASCAR.
Honestly, when we flip this on and you've got that IROC on, I don't know if it's like 1976, 77 again, because that's what it looks like. But I want to go back to the book, and because you mentioned something in the book. And you mentioned your reason for writing it. And obviously I had a book a couple years ago, and it was for my kids at the same way, to kind of lay some of this stuff out to them. And I jokingly always say, if you can't write your own propaganda, who's going to write it for you? You got to get your story out there first. You know what I mean? Tell your story first and let everybody fill in the gaps. Here's the question. And you mentioned it. How deep do you go personally? And open up, because that is a hard thing to do. That is a hard thing when you sit down to write a book, is to be honest with yourself. You think you're trying to be honest with the reader, but really you've got to be honest with yourself. And take me to that place when you were writing it.
Well, that's a really good point, Kyle. And it takes time, to figure that out. As you're going through the years, you don't understand it then, but certainly understand it now. But I go all the way back to my career early, when I felt like I had talent as a race driver, but I didn't have enough commitment, and I didn't really know what I was doing. And there's a couple of big turning points right there when I was racing the modifieds, that almost died in a crash at Martinsville and came back from that, but still wasn't doing it. And the gentleman that I tangled with, Tony Siscone, was burned bad in that crash, and he beat me for the championship the next year. And you all of a sudden realize, look, he's not beating me because he's got better cars, he's got whatever. The guy's more committed. And then that led me to go to IROC and learn. And I was really questioning myself a lot, and looking back at the things that I did, through Hendrick coming up, and the things I did good, but the things I wish I'd have done better with people. And the emotion of how I handled Ray J's battle with leukemia. You have to look back on that. The things that were going through my head then that maybe drove me to hide in my work a little bit. And then, of course, all the way through leaving Hendrick, talk straight up about that myself and Jeff, how we handled that, and then leaving Hendrick, and then to the divorce, and all of the things that I faced a little bit later, and was really open and honest. And it's like, look, if people want to believe that, it's great. Some people are going to believe it and take it for what it is, and other people are always going to read something into it. But when I wrote the book, I wanted to really write and understand, okay, look, here's the truth. And I'm going to tell you, I don't always make myself look like a good guy. There's not, it's not like I'm praising myself to be a hero. That's why we called it Trophies and Scars. There's things I did right, but there's absolutely things that I did not handle properly at that time.
Well, we look forward to reading it and learning about all of those things. And well, let's talk about the next chapter as well, because as we talk to you here today, you're wearing your IROC jacket. Look, I'm a huge fan. On a road trip to Indy once, I made sure I went through Batesville because I knew Mark Martin had a couple of IROC cars in his dealership museum, which was kind of cool. In fact, we've already got your schedule lined out for whenever you do come back on track, Ray, just so you know. But you and Rob Kaufman, purchased some of the rights to IROC, and I know you have some short-term plans, but tell us about that and the long-term plans and where we might be.
Well, Rob, great guy, a car guy like me, loves the history of the sport. IROC has just always been special to me. Without Jay Signori and Roger Penske giving me that chance and getting to work with all of the stars that I did, again, who knows where I would have ended up. So I just feel like you know, as things go around that circle, you know, what's old is new again. And you look at the things that kind of forced IROC to go away. I think right now, the way motorsports is in the world, there's an opportunity. People are interested. You know, people like that's 1974 right there, Kyle. That is, you know, and that's original patch. We just sewed it on this on this vest here. But you know, the IROC brand is really well known because of the legendary superstars from all over the world that came in. You know, you had Formula One guys against NASCAR guys against, you know, IndyCar guys and sports car guys. And it really has a good brand. So we're going to first look at finding as many of these vintage IROC cars as we can, holding a big reunion. Hopefully we can make an announcement about that short. Still trying to work on nailing the final date down and the place. We're really close. But, you know, to gather as many as we can, bring drivers and cars and back. The Camaro IROC Z clubs are going wild. You know, people want to see these things. And we've got the ability to put a bunch of them back on track in a racing exhibition type area. And we'll see how that goes. You know, as I said on Dale Jr.'s podcast, is it my dream to bring back IROC in all of its glory? Absolutely, 100%. But there's a lot of things in the world that are different now, and finding the right business case. I feel like I started that when I started with the IROC, or I'm sorry, with the SRX series, learned a lot. And I do feel like there is a place for that form of motorsports entertainment now, but we're going to go one step at a time. But, you know, if you said, all right, Ray, if you had, you know, rub the genie in the lamp, I'd say IROC racing around the world would be my choice.
You know, I know IROC is special to you personally because of your history with IROC, but, you know, speaking specifically about, you know, what happened and what transpired with SRX, is this also like an opportunity to fulfill what you were trying to do with XRX and that partnership that never really came to fruition for you?
I hope so. You know, you live and learn. As I said, that's what the trophies and scars are about. You start with a great idea, and sometimes it doesn't go right. And as I said, I had one vision for what SRX was supposed to be, going to be, and partners had a different vision, and it just came time to say, okay, look, I'm going to do my thing over here. You guys go ahead and handle that. And you know that I have this vision that, you know, not saying my vision's right, but at having 50 years of working at this, I'd like to have a shot at seeing that happen again. And I want to work hand in hand with the folks at NASCAR, IndyCar, sports car racing. I believe that we all have a lane that we can stay in. And, you know, we need to stay in our lanes and not be crisscrossing each other's lanes and really work together to entertain the fans. And I think that we can do that. And I hope that this gives me another shot to try it.
You know, you talk about the reunion side of it. That's intriguing to me because you Fittipaldi. I mean, we had so many when that first year. I remember running Riverside in those whale tail Porsches, you know, and it was Pearson and the King and those guys. 4 guys from the Cup, 4 guys from the IndyCar, 4 guys from sports car racing, 4 guys from Formula One. Truly an international series. It tailed off towards the end and became something totally different. But when you talk about taking it to the world, you could take the reunion to the world. You can take that to Europe. You can take Goodwood's a perfect example. You could take that a million different places. Is that in your scope of as you look at this?
Absolutely. You know, absolutely. As I said, we're building the first one because when you start something, sometimes you think you know how much you don't know, but truthfully, you really don't know how much you don't know. So I'm going into this knowing I don't know how much I don't know. And we're going to try and put together this first reunion and then learn from it. And then, but yeah, ultimately, I do believe that because the original Race of Champions, International Race of Champions, was so international that there's, you know, the brand is really recognizable. Right now, we're getting, you know, letters and emails and Facebook from people from all over the world, really. And, you know, Kyle, you were part of that. Then you saw it, and you saw how excited the fans were. And not to jump off topic, but I do, and I tell people, and I want to throw a shout out to you, and I look at you and Dale Jr., who have always helped me with the history stuff, and you know, being the 2 biggest names in the sport, Petty and Earnhardt, how much you guys are doing for the history of the sport right now is incredible. So, just take a minute to take a little bow and pat yourself on the back
Thank you, man.
because it does not go unrecognized with the things that you're doing or he's doing, because ultimately all those things help bring back brands like this to let people know what really drive that spirit back into what the DNA of all of our racing was.
Ray,
you,
I do want to ask you about how people can get your book and how it's available. Before we jump to that, and you've alluded to it a couple of times, are you surprised at the public reaction the minute it came out that you were trying to bring back IROC? I'd heard about it everywhere.
Honestly, I was somewhat, I don't want to say, just blown away, because, I've always felt like, hey, IROC's really cool. But sometimes, what I think's cool, not everybody thinks it's cool, and I'm going to tell you that the response from this honestly has surprised us in a really, pleasant way. And again, it's about that brand. It's about that recognizable flag. But people remember how good that was. They remember how entertaining it was. And they remember when we go to the racetrack or when we go to see a sporting event, we don't go to see the machine. We don't go to see the ball or the bat or the tennis racket. We go see the people, the stars. And, you look back all the way to Riverside when they started with the Porsches or the first round of Camaros. Some of those names, they were literally, honestly finding out, or at least mixing the greatest drivers in the world. When Kyle talked before about his dad and about Pearson, I remember stories about Pearson, with that, talking about the shifter in the Porsche and things like that, But in 10 laps, those guys are right out there running with the best road racers in the world. It was just an amazing thing. And hopefully we can replicate that.
All right. We do want to try to help you sell some books here. So where can folks find it? At all the
Amazon
places?
Amazon is always the place, right? They're killing it right now. We've been really, really happy with the response. Hadn't even launched yet. I didn't even have copies to give to people. But either the Octane Publishing website, our own website here at Ray Evernham Enterprises, or Amazon. So as I said, it's going to literally be a real book being shipped out by March 4th. But right now, the pre-order sales have gone really well.
Well, that's fantastic. That's great news. I know we will get you back on here because there's some more things that we want to talk about. We might just have you back on and you and Kyle do an hour.
Put me down for a VIP pass for these shows, man.
I got a book. Kyle sent me his book, and it was fantastic. I told him, look, that's the only book I've read in a while that made me laugh and made me cry. And so, Kyle, there's one coming your way, as with all of you, as soon as I get them.
Thank you, man.
All right, Ray Evernham. He's a busy guy right now.
Sir.
We really appreciate him giving us some of his time. Ray, take care. Good luck with the book. I don't think luck's going to have anything to do with it. I think it's going to be.
All right, and thank you, and good luck with your retirement. Great to see you calling a few laps at Daytona 500.
Thank you, Ray. That was pretty special. I really enjoyed that.